The first thing that moved in time with the radio wasn't a person. It was a line of elk. There were 7 of them standing at the far edge of the meadow, dark shapes against the red wash of the eclipsed moon, and every time the little portable radio on our blanket played its 3 low notes, all 7 animals lifted their heads at exactly the same speed. Not almost the same, exactly. I remember that because my sister Hannah laughed the first time it happened. "Okay," she said, "that's creepy." Then the radio played the notes again. 3 tones, low, lower, low. The elk turned their heads toward us. All 7. The laugh left Hannah's face. That was when I should have grabbed her and walked back to the shuttle road. Instead, I reached for the radio, which, if you know anything about Hannah and me, is probably the least surprising thing I could have done. I'm the person who checks the stove twice before leaving the house. I'm the person who sends screenshots of reservation numbers, saves offline maps, carries 2 phone chargers, and gets to airports early enough to watch the gate agent arrive. Hannah calls it being prepared. She means controlling. We hadn't taken a trip together in almost 4 years. The Blood Moon weekend at Morro Basin National Park was supposed to fix that. At least, that was the version I told myself. The park had turned the eclipse into a whole event. They called it Night of the Red Moon, which sounded more like a horror movie than something printed on government banners. But people loved it. Every campground was full. The hotels in the nearest town had sold out months earlier. There were food trucks parked near the visitor center, shuttle buses running after dark, amateur astronomy clubs with telescopes lined up along the rim road, and families wrapped in blankets across the big meadow below Juniper Point. It was the opposite of isolated. That mattered later. At the time, it just made me feel safe. We had a couple from Phoenix sitting 10 feet to our right, 2 college kids behind us arguing about camera settings, and a family with 3 little boys throwing glow sticks at one another until their father threatened to confiscate all of them. Hannah sat cross-legged beside me with a paper cup of coffee between both hands. "You can stop checking the time," she said. "I'm not checking the time." "You literally just checked the time." I was checking the Eclipse app. "That has a clock on it." I put my phone face down on the blanket. She smiled. It was the first easy smile I'd gotten from her all weekend. Hannah and I look enough alike that strangers used to ask if we were twins, but nobody who knew us ever made that mistake. She moves through life like she expects the floor to stay under her. I test the floor first. That difference used to work for us. After our mother died, it stopped working. I became the person who reminded Hannah about tuition deadlines, doctor appointments, oil changes, rent, insurance, groceries, all the boring pieces of life that suddenly seemed capable of killing us if I didn't keep track of them. She was 17. I was 21. I never really figured out how to stop being 21. Hannah never really forgave me for it. The trip had been her idea, surprisingly. She'd texted me a link to the Eclipse event with one sentence beneath it. "Maybe we can go somewhere neither of us has ruined yet." Not exactly sentimental. Still, I booked the campsite before she could change her mind. The little radio had come with the event packet when we checked in. Cheap plastic, bright yellow, no digital display. A sticker on the back said, "Park Info 88.7, FM." The ranger at the booth told us the station would carry eclipse timing, shuttle notices, weather updates, and astronomy commentary throughout the night. For the first 2 hours, that was all it did. A calm man explained why the moon looked red. A woman reminded people not to walk into the road while looking at the sky. Someone announced that the south parking lot had reached capacity, normal stuff. Then totality began. The meadow changed before the moon did. Conversations thinned, children stopped running, people lowered their phones without being asked. It felt less like silence than listening. Above us, the last bright edge of the moon disappeared, and the whole basin fell into a dim red twilight. Hundreds of people sighed at once, not in sync, not yet. Hannah bumped my shoulder with hers. Worth the 4-hour drive? I looked at her. The moonlight had taken most of the color out of her face, but her eyes were bright. "Yeah," I said, "it is." The radio crackled. The astronomy host cut off in the middle of a sentence. Static filled the speaker for maybe 2 seconds. Then came the 3 notes. Low, lower, low. A few people nearby glanced at their radios. One of the college kids behind us said, "Was that part of it?" The signal stopped. The astronomy host returned. Nobody paid much attention. 30 seconds later, it happened again. 3 notes, same spacing, same volume. That was when Hannah noticed the elk. They had come out of the tree line without anyone around us reacting. 7 animals in a straight, loose row near the far end of the meadow. The tones played. Their heads rose. The host came back. Their heads lowered. Hannah laughed once, then the tones returned. The elk lifted their heads again. This time I was watching closely enough to see the motion start together, as though someone had pulled a single invisible string through all 7 necks. A woman near us whispered, "Oh, wow." People began turning. Phones came back up. Someone applauded, thinking it was some strange coincidence worth filming. Then a flock of small birds burst out of the cottonwoods on the west side of the meadow. I don't know what kind. There were hundreds. They rose in a dark cloud, circled once, and then separated into 3 perfect bands across the red moon. The radio played the first note. The birds banked left. Second note. They leveled. Third note. Every one of them folded its wings. Not enough to fall, just enough to drop several feet at exactly the same moment. The entire meadow made the same sound, a soft, startled inhale. Hannah reached over and put her hand on my wrist. Her fingers were cold. "Claire," she said. I looked at her. She wasn't watching the birds anymore. She was looking past me, at the crowd. I turned. Across the meadow, maybe 50 yards away, a cluster of people had all tilted their heads to the left. They were strangers, different ages, different families, different blankets, but they were holding the exact same angle. The radio crackled in my hand, low, lower, low, and this time, without meaning to, I tilted my head with them. For half a second, I didn't notice I was doing it. That was the worst part. There was no pressure in my neck, no invisible hand turning my head, no voice telling me where to look. I simply found myself tilted to the left, as naturally as if I'd shifted to hear someone better. Then Hannah grabbed my chin and pushed my face upright. "What are you doing?" I don't know. The answer came out too quickly. Around us, other people seemed to realize the same thing. A man sitting on a folding chair straightened with an embarrassed laugh. A teenage girl touched the side of her neck and looked at her mother. One of the college kids behind us said, "Okay, did everybody just do that?" Nobody answered him. The radio host returned. Totality will continue for approximately 11 more minutes here at Morro Basin, and if you look just below, static. 3 notes. Low, lower, low. I clenched my jaw and kept my head straight. It worked, at least I thought it did. Then Hannah squeezed my wrist. "Your hand." I looked down. My right index finger was tapping against my knee 3 times. Tap, 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 pause, then again. Tap, tap, tap. I stopped it with my other hand. Behind us, someone started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind people use when they want everyone else to agree something isn't frightening. "Oh, come on, that's just suggestion." It was one of the college guys, the taller one wearing a beanie despite the fact it had been nearly 80 degrees that afternoon. His friend held up his phone. "I'm filming this." "Good. Film me not doing it." The radio pulsed again. The guy in the beanie crossed his arms dramatically. Nothing happened. He grinned. "See?" Then his left foot scraped backward 3 inches. His right followed. His left followed again. 3 steps. He stopped smiling. No one applauded this time. A ripple of conversation moved through the meadow. People began checking their radios. Some stood. Parents pulled their kids closer. A woman near the front shouted toward one of the portable lighting towers. "Hey, is this part of the program?" There was no response. The astronomy host kept returning between the bursts, sounding perfectly normal. That somehow made everything worse. He talked about atmospheric refraction. The radio tones played. 100 people inhaled together. He talked about crater shadows. The tones played. A row of people turned toward the western ridge. He reminded everyone to remain in designated viewing areas. The tones played. Somewhere behind us, a baby stopped crying mid-wail, not gradually, instantly. I looked at Hannah. "We should go." She didn't argue. That scared me more than anything. Normally, Hannah resisted me on principle. If I told her it looked like rain, she'd leave the umbrella in the car just to make a point. Now she was already gathering the edge of the blanket. "Yeah," she said. "Okay." Around us, other people had reached the same conclusion. The meadow began to break apart. Blankets folded badly. Camp chairs snapped shut. Phones became flashlights. People started moving toward the shuttle road in loose groups while park volunteers tried to direct them. Then the animals moved. All 7 elk stepped into the meadow. The crowd froze. You could feel the fear change. Animals had been beautiful when they were far away. Up close, an elk is a wall with antlers. The largest one came first, but it wasn't leading. None of them seemed to be leading. They walked shoulder to shoulder, perfectly spaced. A child squealed. His father lifted him off the ground. The elk stopped. The radio played. 3 notes. Something shifted along the tree line. Coyotes, at least 4. They stepped into the open grass. Someone swore. A park volunteer yelled, "Everybody stay calm, do not run." The advice was good. It was also impossible. People started backing away. I grabbed our radio in one hand and Hannah's arm in the other. "Hannah, I'm moving." "No, now." "Claire, I am." She yanked her arm out of my grip. It was such a normal Hannah reaction that, absurdly, I felt relieved. We started toward the shuttle road. Then the coyotes walked past the elk. Not around them, past them, close enough that one brushed beneath an elk's shoulder. The elk didn't kick. The coyotes didn't snarl. Nobody hunted. Nobody fled. They arranged themselves in the grass, 7 elk, 4 coyotes. Then rabbits began appearing. I counted 6 before I forced myself to stop counting. Birds landed between them. A pair of mule deer emerged from the brush. Small animals I couldn't identify moved through the grass in quick, synchronized lines. Predator and prey gathered together as if those categories had temporarily stopped meaning anything. People forgot to leave. One by one they turned back. Hundreds of phones rose. "This is insane," Hannah whispered. A woman near us began crying, not screaming. Crying the way people cry at weddings. "It's beautiful," she said. Her husband stared at her. "What?" She wiped her face and laughed. "I don't know. Look at them." The radio played. Low, lower, low. Every animal lowered itself to the ground, together. The meadow went completely still. Even the insects seemed quiet. For the first time, I became aware of the ground beneath my shoes. There was a vibration in it, barely there. Not enough to feel through my whole body, just through the soles. 3 pulses. I looked at the radio, then at the dirt. 3 more pulses. Hannah felt them too. Her eyes dropped. "Is that coming from the speakers?" "No." "You sure?" I held the radio up. The next 3 tones played from the tiny speaker in my hand. At almost the same moment, 3 faint tremors traveled through the ground, not perfectly aligned. The vibration came first. The radio followed. I stared at the yellow plastic receiver. That difference was maybe half a second, maybe less. But it changed the shape of the fear in my head. The radio wasn't telling the ground what to do. The ground was doing something first. Behind us, the shuttle road erupted with horns. One of the buses was trying to pull away, but people had crowded across the pavement. A park volunteer shouted through a megaphone, "Please move toward the marked lanes. Keep the roadway clear." The radio crackled. Then, for the first time, the astronomy host did not come back. Only static, a long hiss. The crowd slowly quieted. The static faded. 3 notes played. The first vibrated through the ground. The second came through the radio. The third came from hundreds of people around us. Not from their radios, from their throats. A low, breathy hum. Hannah made the sound too. I turned to her. Her eyes were closed. She was smiling. "Hannah?" She opened her eyes. For a moment she looked happier than I had seen her since before Mom died. Then she looked at me and said, almost apologetically, "Claire, I think I know what they're feeling." "What do you mean, you know what they're feeling?" Hannah looked back toward the animals. "They're not scared?" "That's not what I asked." "I know." Her voice had changed. Not dramatically. She still sounded like Hannah. But the tension that had been sitting underneath every sentence since we arrived at the park was gone. Around us, hundreds of people stood facing the center of the meadow. Some were filming. Some had lowered their phones. More than a few were smiling. The animals remained arranged in the grass without touching one another. Coyotes rested beside rabbits. Birds stood between the legs of elk. A mule deer lowered its head until its nose was inches from the back of something small and gray that should have been running for its life. Nothing ran. The ground pulsed again. 3 times. My radio answered half a second later. Then the people hummed. I didn't. Neither did the man beside me. He was maybe 60, wearing a red windbreaker and holding both hands over his mouth. His wife did hum. He grabbed her shoulder. "Janice?" She blinked. "What?" "You just did that." "Did what?" "That sound." She stared at him as if he'd accused her of singing in church. Then the park volunteers finally reacted. A woman in a reflective vest came running from the shuttle road with a megaphone. "Everyone, please turn off your radios." That broke the spell more effectively than anything else had. People looked down. Several laughed nervously. Someone shouted, "Finally!" The volunteer raised the megaphone again. "We're experiencing interference on the park information frequency. Please switch off any portable receivers and keep them off until further notice." There was immediate movement. Clicks. Buttons. Battery covers opening. One man simply threw his radio onto his blanket. I switched ours off. The speaker went dead. Hannah watched me do it. "Better?" she asked. "We'll see. You always say that. Because sometimes you have to wait to see if something worked." She rolled her eyes. Again, normal. Good. People around us began talking. The effect was almost ridiculous. 5 seconds earlier, the meadow had felt like a cathedral. Now everyone had theories, solar interference, a prank, some kind of wildlife frequency experiment, a malfunction in the event equipment. A guy behind us confidently explained that lunar eclipses affected animal magnetoreception, which sounded scientific enough that several strangers nodded despite clearly having no idea whether it was true. I didn't care about theories. I watched Hannah. "Do you still feel it?" She knew exactly what I meant. For a second she considered lying. Then she nodded. "Yes." My stomach tightened. "What?" "The animals. How could you possibly know what an elk feels?" "I don't mean their thoughts." "Then what do you mean?" She rubbed both palms down her arms. "I don't know, like..." She searched for the word. "Relief." I stared at her. She laughed softly. "I know how that sounds." "Do you?" "Claire." "No, seriously." Her smile disappeared. There it was, the old irritation. I was grateful for it. "You don't have to interrogate me." "I'm not interrogating you." "You're using your interrogation face." "I don't have an interrogation face." You absolutely have an interrogation face. A cheer rose from the far side of the meadow. We both turned. The elk had stood. Not all at once this time, almost. The largest rose first. Then the others followed in a rolling sequence. A second later, the coyotes stood. Then the deer. Then the people nearest them, one row at a time. A wave traveled through the crowd. People rose from blankets without apparently noticing that the people ahead of them had done the same thing. "Hannah? I see it." The wave was coming toward us, 20 yards. 15, 10. I grabbed her hand. "Stay sitting." "What?" "Just stay down." People directly in front of us stood. The woman named Janice rose. Her husband pulled her back. She looked genuinely confused. Then my thighs tightened. My weight shifted forward. I was standing before I realized I had moved. So was Hannah. I forced myself back down. "Hannah, sit." She remained standing. "Hannah, I'm okay." That isn't the point. The ground vibrated. 3 pulses. There was no radio now. No tones, nothing audible at all, but I could feel the pattern through the blanket. The crowd hummed, not everyone, maybe half. That was enough. It rolled across the meadow like wind through power lines. I grabbed the radio and tore open the battery compartment. 2 cheap AA batteries dropped into the grass. "There," Hannah looked at them. "You already turned it off." "Now it's definitely off." The ground pulsed again. Hannah closed her eyes. "Hannah." She breathed in. So did hundreds of people. I slapped both hands over her ears. Her eyes snapped open. "What the hell?" "Did it stop?" "What?" "The feeling." "No." I looked around. Other people had apparently reached the same conclusion. Radios were being switched off everywhere. Batteries scattered across blankets. One park volunteer carried a plastic bin down the edge of the crowd while people tossed receivers into it. The humming continued. The animals began walking, not toward us, across the meadow, slowly. The elk moved first. Everything else followed, not in a herd, in lines. Different species maintaining equal distance from one another as they headed toward the eastern side of Morro Basin. And then the people followed. At first, only those closest to the animals, a dozen. Then 30, then more. They simply started walking. Some still held phones. One man carried a folding chair. A woman walked with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Nobody looked panicked. That frightened me far more than running would have. The park volunteer with the megaphone stepped into their path. "Folks, please remain in the viewing area." People moved around her. "Stop! The eastern meadow is closed after dark." Nobody stopped. She grabbed one man by the arm. He looked at her, not angrily, almost kindly. "We're just going over there." "Sir, you can't." "I know." And then he gently removed her hand and kept walking. The ground pulsed. Hannah stepped forward. I caught the back of her jacket. "No." She twisted around. "Let go." The words were sharper than I expected. "I'm not letting you walk off into the woods with a herd of elk and God knows how many coyotes." "They're not going into the woods." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." "How?" She looked toward the moving crowd. "I can feel where they're going." I held tighter. Something changed in her expression. Not blankness, not possession. That would have been easier. She looked completely awake, completely herself, and furious with me. "You're doing it again." My grip loosened. "Doing what?" "Deciding that because you're scared, I don't get a choice." That is not what this is. It's always what this is. "Hannah, look around." I am looking. No, really look. I am. Her voice cracked. She pointed toward the meadow. "Do you know what's different?" I waited. For once, nobody out there is trying to be anything. The words landed harder than they should have. She continued before I could answer. Nobody's trying to impress anybody. Nobody's deciding who belongs with who. Nothing's chasing anything. Nothing's afraid. That doesn't make it safe. I didn't say safe. The humming deepened. I felt it in my chest now, a pressure beneath my sternum. For one terrible second, I understood what Hannah meant. Not thoughts, not voices, absence. No need to decide where to stand. No need to wonder if the person beside you was angry. No need to be the older sister. No need to keep anyone alive. No need to be Claire at all. The relief was enormous. Then a shuttle bus horn blasted from the road. The feeling vanished, not gradually, instantly. I staggered. Hannah flinched too. People nearest the road stopped walking. Several looked around as if waking from microsleep. The bus lurched forward through the crowd control lane. Its diesel engine vibrated through the pavement. A woman inside pressed both hands against the window. She was crying, but she wasn't humming. I looked at the bus, then at the people outside it, then down at the trembling ground beneath my shoes. And for the first time that night, I stopped thinking about the radio. The bus gave me the first useful idea I'd had all night, not because of where it was going, because of what it was sitting on. The shuttle lane ran along a raised strip of asphalt at the edge of the meadow, maybe a foot higher than the packed ground where the viewing area had been set up. Every time one of the buses rolled forward, people nearest the pavement stumbled out of rhythm. Not everyone, not for long, but enough. I let go of Hannah's jacket. She immediately took another step toward the moving crowd. I caught her wrist instead. "Come with me." "No. I'm not asking you to leave yet." She looked at me suspiciously. That was more like her. "I just want to test something." "Of course you do." "Hannah?" She sighed. "Fine." I pulled her toward the shuttle road. The humming was louder now, not because people were making more noise, because fewer of them were resisting. The sound had changed from a scattered collection of voices into something smoother. Hundreds of breaths and throats settling into the same three-part pattern. Low, lower, low, pause, again. The crowd continued moving east. The animals were farther ahead now, spreading across the basin in long, strangely even intervals. Nobody was chasing them. Nobody was fleeing them. A coyote trotted beside a deer like they had grown up together. The sight should have felt peaceful. Instead, it made every instinct in me scream. We reached the asphalt. The moment Hannah stepped onto it, she stopped. Not dramatically, just stopped. Her shoulders rose. She blinked twice. Then she looked behind her. "What?" "You feel different," she frowned. "Do I? Do you?" For a few seconds she said nothing. The ground beneath the road still vibrated faintly, but the sensation was weaker here, broken, muddier. A shuttle rolled past us 20 feet away. The diesel engine rattled through the pavement. Hannah pressed a hand to her chest. It got quieter. My pulse jumped. "The humming?" "No." She looked irritated that she couldn't explain it. "The other thing." "What other thing?" She stopped, then shook her head. "I don't know." Another pulse traveled beneath us. 3 beats. The first was clear. The second almost disappeared under the engine vibration. The third felt like nothing more than a tremor through my shoes. Hannah's expression tightened. "Claire, I know." "No, I mean—" She looked toward the meadow. A group of people had reached the far side of the viewing field. They weren't wandering anymore. They were arranging themselves, rows, loose but deliberate, everyone facing east. Beyond them, the animals did the same thing. My skin prickled. "Why east? I told you, I can feel where they're going." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." A park employee ran toward us, not a ranger. One of the event workers in a reflective vest. "You two need to board the next shuttle." "What's happening?" We don't know. He was breathing hard. His name tag said EL1. Behind him, 2 more employees were guiding confused people onto a bus. The visitor center lost contact with 3 volunteers in the meadow. People aren't responding to instructions. They're responding, Hannah said. Eli looked at her. What? To something else? He stared at her for half a second too long. Then the humming rolled across the grass. His face went pale. You hear that too? Yes. He rubbed his arms. We thought it was coming from the radios. It isn't. His eyes moved to the dead receiver in my hand. You sure? I took the batteries out. That landed. He looked over his shoulder at the crowd, then at the buses, then back at me. What do you think it is? I don't know, but people near the buses snap out of it. Eli glanced toward the asphalt beneath us. You mean the noise? Maybe the vibration. He understood faster than I expected. The engines. Maybe. Hannah shook her head. You're acting like they're sick. Eli looked at her. Ma'am, people are walking into a closed section of the park in the dark. They know where they're going. How? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. A strange expression crossed her face. Not confusion, grief, like she had forgotten a word she desperately needed. The meadow pulsed. Hannah stepped off the asphalt. I grabbed her. The change was immediate. Her whole body softened. She exhaled. Her eyes closed. Oh! I pulled her back onto the road. She gasped, then shoved me hard enough that I nearly fell. Stop doing that! Eli raised both hands. Hey, hey! Don't touch me. I'm not touching you. She turned on me. You felt it too. I froze. She saw the answer on my face. Didn't you? I hated lying to her, so I didn't. Yes. And? And that's exactly why we need to leave. Her jaw tightened. Because it scared you. Because I stopped caring who I was. She looked away. That was the best part. The sentence hurt more than I expected. Eli glanced between us, clearly wishing he had chosen another evacuation lane. A bus pulled up. The doors folded open. Get on, I said. Hannah didn't move. Hannah, no. The humming deepened again. People in the meadow lifted their faces toward the moon. So did the animals, all at once. The red moon hung above the eastern ridge, darker now, almost copper. I checked the eclipse app. 7 minutes of totality remaining. 7. That was all. I held the screen up. This ends in 7 minutes. Hannah looked at it. So? So we sit on the bus for 7 minutes. And then what? Then we see what happens. She laughed once. There was no humor in it. You mean you decide what happens? That's not fair. You don't get to use that word. Eli quietly stepped away to help another couple. I lowered my voice. I'm trying to keep you safe. I know. Then why are you fighting me? Her eyes filled, not with fear, with anger. Because you always say that like it ends the conversation. I didn't know what to say. Behind her, the entire eastern half of the meadow took one step forward at the same time. Thousands of shoes brushing grass in a single, soft rush. Hannah heard it. Her face changed. She looked past me toward the bus, then back at the crowd. For the first time, she seemed torn. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. Just 7 minutes, I said. The ground pulsed. Her fingers tightened around mine. Then every light in the shuttle lane went out. The engines died with them. And from the meadow came a sound no human crowd should have been able to make. One long, perfectly unified breath in. Nobody screamed. That was what made it unbearable. Hundreds of people had just lost every light around them at once. The shuttle engines were dead. The portable towers were black. Even the illuminated signs near the road had vanished. And instead of panic, the meadow breathed. One long inhale, Then a slow exhale. The sound moved through the basin like weather. Beside me, Hannah breathed with them. I yanked her toward the bus. The doors were still open. Inside! She resisted for half a second. Then another pulse traveled through the ground, and her whole body leaned toward the meadow. I stopped asking. I shoved her through the doorway. Hey! Be mad later. I climbed in behind her and nearly collided with the driver, a thick-set woman in a park event jacket trying the ignition. Click. Nothing. She turned the key again. Click. The instrument panel stayed dark. Battery? Eli climbed in after us. Everything died at the same time. Radios too? Everything. The driver slapped the steering wheel. Great! Outside, the crowd exhaled again. Hannah moved toward the open doors. I blocked her. Don't. Claire, no. You said 7 minutes. It's probably 6 now. So let me stand outside for 6 minutes. That's not what I said. She stared at me. Then her eyes shifted past my shoulder. I turned. There were maybe 20 people already sitting on the bus. A family from the viewing field. 2 older men. A woman still clutching a telescope tripod. A teenager in a varsity jacket. All of them had stopped talking. The teenager's fingers were moving against his thigh. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. The woman with the tripod began humming. I felt my stomach drop. The bus wasn't enough. Not while it was sitting still. The driver noticed too. What is happening? Nobody answered. Outside, the crowd took another step east, thousands of feet, one soft rush. Hannah whispered, "They're late." I looked at her. What? She blinked. I said they're leaving. No, you didn't. Her face tightened. Claire, don't. You said they're late? No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I said they're leaving. You said... The ground pulsed. Hannah's eyes unfocused. Then she spoke quietly. We're late. That word hit me harder than the humming. We? Her expression changed. She looked frightened, not of me, of herself. I don't know why I said that. The driver was still turning the key. Click, click, click. Eli leaned over the front console. Try neutral. It is in neutral. Cycle the master. I already did. One of the older men shouted from the back, "Can somebody close the doors?" The driver hit the switch. Nothing happened. The doors remained folded open. The humming from outside poured in. So did the vibration. I could feel it through the bus floor now, not cleanly. Metal softened it, scattered it, but it was there. 3 pulses, 3 notes that weren't notes. 3 instructions that weren't instructions. My shoulders relaxed. That scared me enough to bring me back. Everybody off the floor. People looked at me. I pointed at the seats. Put your feet up. The driver stared. What? Just do it. Maybe it was the tone I used. Maybe everyone was desperate enough to try anything. Feet came off the floor. People tucked their legs onto seats. One man grabbed the overhead rail and lifted both boots. Hannah sat beside me and pulled her knees to her chest. The next pulse came. I still felt it, through the seat frame, through the bus chassis, through my spine. The teenager tapped 3 times. It's not enough, I said. Eli looked toward the dark road. Because we're still touching the ground? Maybe. Birds aren't. He was right. I looked through the windshield. The bands of birds had returned. Hundreds of them circled above the moving crowd in coordinated arcs. No ground contact. So much for that theory. Another unified step. The people in the eastern meadow were disappearing into the dark beyond the official viewing boundary, toward the lower basin. Hannah stood. Sit down. We have to go. No, she grabbed the seat in front of her. Her knuckles whitened. Claire, something is wrong. I know. No. She shook her head rapidly. With them. That was the first time she had separated herself from the crowd in several minutes. I crouched in front of her. What do you feel? She squeezed her eyes shut. Pressure. Where? Everywhere. Pain? No, she opened her eyes. It's like when someone's waiting for you and you're making them wait. I felt cold despite the warm night. Who? I don't know. Where are they going? Her gaze drifted toward the eastern windows. The middle? The middle of what? She swallowed. The park. Eli heard her. Morrow Basin's geographic center isn't east. Hannah shook her head. Not that kind of middle. Nobody spoke. Then an engine coughed outside. Once, twice. A diesel roar tore through the quiet. Everyone on our bus flinched. The driver lunged toward the windshield. One of the other shuttles had started. Its headlights snapped on. A cheer erupted from a handful of people near the road. The driver of the other bus threw it into gear. The vehicle lurched forward. Something happened immediately. The passengers inside broke rhythm. A woman who had been humming stopped and grabbed the seat in front of her. A man near the rear window jerked backward like he had just awakened from a nightmare. The bus accelerated. More people inside began looking around in confusion. I pointed. There! Eli saw it too. The driver stared. What? They're waking up. The moving bus rolled 50 yards down the road. People inside pressed against the windows, shouting, gesturing. One woman covered her mouth and started crying. The driver beside us turned the key again. Click, nothing. Come on. Click, nothing. Outside, the crowd changed direction, not all at once, section by section. Heads turned toward the moving shuttle, then shoulders, then bodies. Thousands of people standing in the basin rotated to follow it. The animals did the same. For the first time, I wondered if the crowd wasn't simply going somewhere. Maybe it had noticed something leaving. The other shuttle picked up speed. The humming stopped. Every person in the meadow became silent. Hannah's grip crushed my hand. Claire. What? Her eyes were fixed on the bus disappearing down the road. She whispered so softly I almost didn't hear her. It doesn't want them to go. The other shuttle disappeared around the curve. For maybe 5 seconds, nobody moved. Then the entire meadow moved at once. Not toward the eastern basin anymore, toward the road. Thousands of people changed direction with the same calm precision as a flock of birds banking in the sky. No shouting, no running. Just a coordinated turn and a steady walk. Eli stared through the windshield. They're following the bus. Hannah shook her head. No, I looked at her. What? They're trying to stop it. The driver laughed once, a short, terrified sound. How would you know that? Hannah pressed both hands to her temples. I don't know, she sounded miserable now. I don't know how I know any of this. The crowd reached the edge of the shuttle lane. They didn't step into it, not yet. They lined up along the asphalt, hundreds of people standing shoulder to shoulder beneath the red moon. Then the animals arrived behind them. Elk, coyotes, deer, smaller shapes moving between legs. Birds settled on light poles, roofs, signs, railings. Everything faced the direction the shuttle had gone. Waiting. The Eclipse app on my phone said 4 minutes and 46 seconds remained in totality. 4 minutes. That number should have reassured me. It didn't. The bus driver tried the ignition again. Nothing. Eli moved toward the rear. I'm checking the exterior electrical cutoff. Will that help? Probably not. Comforting. He gave me a look that said he had no patience left for sarcasm and disappeared down the aisle. Hannah sat beside the window. The synchronized crowd outside reflected across the glass over her face. What happens if they stop the bus? I asked. She didn't answer. Hannah. I don't know. You just said, I know what I said. Her voice sharpened. That doesn't mean I understand it. Outside, headlights appeared around the bend. The moving shuttle was coming back. Someone on our bus cheered. Then several people joined in. Thank God. They came back for us. The relief lasted until we saw the crowd. Every person along the road stepped onto the asphalt, together. They filled both lanes. The approaching shuttle slowed. Its horn sounded. The crowd kept walking. The driver leaned on the horn. A long mechanical blast tore across the basin. The effect was immediate. People nearest the shuttle faltered. Some covered their ears. One woman stumbled sideways and looked around in confusion. For a second, a gap opened in the road. Then the horn stopped. The gap closed. The crowd resumed its formation. The shuttle slowed more. 20 miles an hour, 10, 5. The driver wasn't going to hit them. Of course he wasn't. The bus stopped, and the moment it stopped, the passengers inside began changing. I could see it through the windshield, heads turning, shoulders relaxing. A man who had been pounding on the glass lowered his hand. A woman who had been crying stopped. The synchronized crowd surrounded the shuttle, not attacking it, simply enclosing it. Hannah whispered, "There." What? That's what it wanted? I hated the word. Stop saying it like there's a person behind this. She turned toward me. I didn't say there was. You keep saying it, oh. What do you want me to call this, Claire? I had no answer. From the back of our bus came 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I spun around. The teenager in the varsity jacket was doing it again. The woman beside him had started humming. The older man across the aisle breathed in with them. The bus was slipping. Eli returned. No power at the cutoff. It's not just the ignition. I looked at the passengers. We need noise. The driver frowned. What? Not the same noise, I stood. Everybody start talking. Nobody moved. Seriously. Talk, sing, clap, anything. Just don't do it together. A man near the front stared at me. Why? Because every time something disrupts the pattern, people snap out of it. That's not exactly scientific. No, but neither are the coyotes sitting next to rabbits. That worked. The driver started pounding an irregular rhythm against the steering wheel. Eli clapped badly on purpose. The older man recited state capitals. Someone started singing "Happy Birthday" much too fast. Another woman yelled random numbers. 17, 4, 92, 11, purple. That's not a number, somebody shouted. Good. The bus filled with ugly, chaotic noise. No rhythm, no agreement. No coordination. The humming weakened. The teenager stopped tapping. His face twisted. Why am I crying? His mother pulled him against her. Outside, the crowd closest to us began to turn. Not all of them, but enough. Faces looked toward the bus. The sound bothered them. I could see that now. People winced. Some pressed hands over their ears. Hannah did too. Stop, I kept clapping. Claire, stop. No, it hurts. That made my hands freeze. What hurts? She squeezed her eyes shut. All of it. The bus driver stopped pounding the wheel. The coordinated hum outside immediately grew louder. Keep going, I said. Hannah grabbed my arms. No. Her face was wet. You don't understand what you're doing. Then tell me. It feels like being pulled apart. My chest tightened. She looked toward the crowd. They're not losing themselves. Hannah, they're not. Her voice shook. They're still there. How could you know? Because I was still there. The sentence quieted me. She wiped her face. When I was with them, I still knew you were my sister. I still knew Mom was dead. I knew my name. Then what changed? She looked at me with a kind of sadness I had never seen before. I didn't have to carry it alone. Outside, the crowd took one synchronized step closer to our bus. Then another. The passengers started making noise again. Louder, messier. People shouted over one another. The crowd slowed. That was when I finally understood the moving shuttle. It wasn't distance. It wasn't the road. It wasn't being off the ground. Movement created interference. Engines, vibration, acceleration, constant irregular changes that made it harder for separate nervous systems to settle into the same rhythm. Stillness made joining easier. Chaos pulled you back apart. The implication frightened me almost as much as the crowd, because Hannah was right. Maybe the thing I was calling rescue felt, from inside, like isolation. I checked my phone. 3 minutes and 9 seconds. 3 minutes, I said. Hannah stared at the eclipse timer. Then she made a decision. I saw it happen. Not supernatural, not involuntary. A choice. She stepped away from me. Hannah. I'm sorry. She moved toward the front doors. I blocked the aisle. You're not going out there. You don't get to decide that. This isn't the time for that argument. This is exactly the time. She reached past the driver. The electrical door control was dead. For 1 second, I felt relief. Then Hannah looked above the doors. At the red emergency release handle. Hannah, don't. She pulled it. Compressed air hissed from somewhere beneath us. The doors loosened. Outside, thousands of people inhaled together. And Hannah pushed the doors open. The doors opened 6 inches. That was enough. The humming changed. Not louder, closer. It rolled into the bus and threw me so fast that my knees weakened. Hannah shoved again. The doors opened another foot. I grabbed the back of her jacket. She twisted. Let go! No. Claire! Outside, the first row of people stepped toward us. They weren't reaching. They weren't threatening us. They just looked at Hannah. Every face carried the same expression. Recognition. Not of her specifically. Of someone coming home. That terrified me more than anger would have. Hannah saw it too. Her struggle stopped. A woman standing 10 feet from the bus smiled at her. Then a man beside the woman smiled. Then another. The expression moved through the crowd, hundreds of people smiling without looking at one another first. Hannah whispered, "Oh my God." I pulled her backward. She fought me again. "Wait. No. Claire, wait. Close the doors." The driver jumped from her seat and grabbed one side. Eli took the other. Together we hauled. The people outside moved closer. Someone inside the bus shouted random words. "Pancakes! Nebraska! Green socks!" Others picked it up. The driver screamed, "Keep making noise!" The bus became chaos again. People clapped out of time. Someone sang the alphabet backward and got lost after W. A little girl started barking like a dog. Her father joined her. It would have been funny anywhere else. The smiling faces outside began to twitch. Not painfully, like maintaining the expression had become difficult. Hannah covered one ear. "Stop!" I pulled harder. She planted her feet. "Stop making them hurt. They're blocking the road." "They're confused." "So are we." She turned. "They're not dangerous." "You don't know that." "And you don't know they are." The argument was so completely ours that for a second I forgot where we were. Then something landed on the roof. Everyone ducked. A second impact followed, then another. Claws scraped across metal. Birds, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They landed across the shuttle roof in a sudden storm of wings. The chaotic noise inside faltered. The humming strengthened. The birds began tapping, not pecking randomly. 3 impacts, pause, 3 impacts. The pattern traveled through the roof. Hannah closed her eyes. Her body relaxed. I slapped the side of the bus. "Keep talking," people shouted again. The driver and Eli finally got the doors moving. They were almost closed when Hannah drove her shoulder between them. "Hannah!" she cried out. The driver released her side immediately. The doors sprang open. Hannah stumbled forward. I caught her around the waist. She kicked backward. Her heel hit my shin. Pain flashed up my leg. I almost let go. Almost. Then she screamed, "Why can't you ever trust me?" The words stopped me harder than the kick. I loosened my grip without meaning to. Hannah turned in my arms. Her face was inches from mine. "You want me to trust every decision you make," she said, "but you never trust one of mine." "This isn't a decision." "Yes, it is. You're under the influence of something. So are you. I'm fighting it. That doesn't make you right." Outside, the synchronized crowd stood waiting. Hannah pointed at them. "I felt better out there than I have in years." My throat tightened. "That doesn't mean it's good." "Why?" "Because you wanted to disappear into it." "No." "Yes." "No, Claire." Her voice dropped. "I wanted to stop being alone inside myself." That silenced me. For years I had imagined Hannah's anger as distance, a wall she kept building between us. I had never considered that she might experience it as the opposite, being trapped somewhere I couldn't reach. The moon hung over her shoulder, copper red. My phone said 2 minutes and 27 seconds. "Hannah," I said, "what happens when totality ends?" "I don't know. That's the problem." She looked at the crowd. "What if nothing happens? What if something does?" And there it is. "What?" "You need the worst possibility to win every argument." I flinched. She saw it. For a moment regret crossed her face. Then the ground pulsed. 3 beats. The birds tapped. The crowd hummed. Hannah inhaled. This time I caught myself doing it too. The sensation spread through my chest, warm, soft. The bus vanished from my awareness. Not literally. It simply stopped mattering. The people around me weren't strangers anymore, not because I knew them, because knowing them felt unnecessary. I could feel the woman behind me breathing, the driver's hand gripping the door, Eli's heartbeat pounding somewhere to my right, Hannah in front of me. For one impossible instant, there was no boundary where my fear ended and hers began. And I understood why she wanted it. God help me, I understood. My mother's death had divided our family into individual rooms. Mine had filled with responsibility. Hannah's had filled with grief. We spent years knocking on the walls and calling it communication. This thing had no walls. That was the seduction, not control, relief from separation. Then a man at the back of the bus screamed. The sound tore through everything. I snapped back. He was pointing out the rear window. The crowd wasn't only surrounding the shuttles anymore. People were lying down, rows of them. Carefully, peacefully. One after another, they lowered themselves onto the asphalt and grass. The animals did the same. Birds settled. Elk folded their legs beneath themselves. Coyotes curled into the dirt. Humans lay shoulder to shoulder, facing the darkening sky. Hannah stared. What are they doing? For the first time, she sounded afraid. I looked beyond them. The pattern was spreading toward the lower basin. Everyone was making space in the center, a wide circle, empty. The kind of emptiness created on purpose. Eli saw it. Why are they leaving the middle open? Nobody answered. The unified breathing slowed. One inhale, one exhale. Again. Then the soil inside the empty circle shifted. Not opened, not cracked, shifted. The grass leaned inward, as though a wind were blowing down into the ground. Dust lifted, pebbles trembled. The people surrounding it did not move. Hannah backed into me. Claire. I know. No. She grabbed my hand. This time she held on. I don't want to go out there anymore. Relief hit me so hard I nearly laughed. Then the bus driver pointed through the windshield. Guys? The second shuttle was surrounded completely. People had lain down around its tires. The vehicle could no longer move without running over them. Our crowd was beginning to do the same, bodies lowered onto the asphalt in front of us, behind us, along both sides, not attacking, anchoring. The driver stared at the blocked road. "We're not driving anywhere." My phone vibrated in my hand. 1 minute and 48 seconds of totality remained, and beneath the bus, something pulsed hard enough to make every window shake. The windows rattled hard enough to make everyone duck. For 1 second, I expected the ground to split open. It didn't. That would have made more sense. Instead, every blade of grass inside the empty circle bent toward its center. Not flattened, bent. The cottonwoods along the far edge of the meadow leaned the same way. Branches shifted, leaves turned. Even the scrub growing between rocks seemed to angle inward. There was almost no wind. I watched one of the astronomy club flags hanging limp beside a telescope. Nothing moved except the living things. Hannah squeezed my hand. "It's not underground." I looked at her. "What?" "The middle." She stared through the windshield. "I thought they were going somewhere." The people lying around the circle inhaled. Grass leaned inward. They exhaled. The grass relaxed. Hannah whispered, "They are the somewhere." A chill moved through me. The empty circle wasn't a destination. It was space being made by everything around it. The basin pulsed again. The people outside pressed more of themselves against the ground. Palms flattened. Cheeks rested against asphalt. Animals lowered their bodies until fur touched dirt. Even the birds abandoned the roofs and settled into the grass. More contact. That thought arrived with absolute certainty, not because something told me, because I could see it. The closer they got to the earth, the calmer they became. "Everybody keep your feet up," I said. The driver stared at me. "You think the ground is doing this?" "I think touching it makes it stronger." Eli looked at the birds. They were affected in the air. "Then it's not just the ground." "Helpful?" I didn't say I understood it. Another pulse. The bus filled with humming. This time it came from inside. Half the passengers joined before anyone could stop them. I clapped once, hard. A woman shouted. Someone kicked the side panel. The rhythm fractured. People blinked awake again. The driver grabbed my shoulder. "We can keep doing this for 90 seconds. I checked my phone. 1 minute, 34. Then we do it for 90 seconds. Outside, more bodies lowered around our tires. The driver looked through the windshield. "And after that?" I didn't answer because I was finally asking the same question Hannah had asked me. What if totality ending didn't undo anything? What if we were waiting for a clock because clocks were comforting? The crowd breathed. The empty circle seemed to breathe with them. Not because the ground moved, because everything living around it did. Trees, grass, animals, people. Hundreds of separate bodies acting like tissue around a shared space. My stomach turned, and beneath the fear was something worse. Recognition. I had felt it. For maybe 3 seconds. The relief. Hannah sat beside me, staring out the window with tears drying on her face. "Is it still there?" I asked. She nodded. "Can you resist it?" "I think so." "That's not very confident." "I'm trying not to lie to you." "Fair." Outside, a man lying beside the front tire lifted his head. He looked directly at me. His expression was peaceful. Then he spoke. I couldn't hear him through the glass, but I could read his lips. "You can stop." I stepped backward. "What?" Hannah saw him too. The man smiled. He placed one palm against the asphalt. Then several people beside him lifted their heads. Different ages, different faces. Their mouths moved at slightly different times. But I could understand the sentence. "You can stop." Hannah started crying again. "Do you hear them?" "No." "I do." I looked at her. "They're talking?" Not like that. Then how? She pressed her fist to her chest. It's the meaning. I grabbed her shoulders. Tell me what it means. She hesitated. Hannah. It means I can stop being afraid that everybody I love is temporary. The anger went out of me. There are some sentences you can fight. That wasn't one of them. For years, I had thought I understood what Mom's death had done to Hannah. I understood the missed semester, the drinking, the boyfriend I hated. The 3 months she barely answered my calls. I understood symptoms. I had mistaken that for understanding her. What else? She looked at the people outside. No one leaves if no one is separate. I felt tears sting my eyes. That's not the same as living. I know. Do you? Yes. She turned to me, and there was my sister, completely, terrified, tempted, angry. I know, Claire. The phone in my hand said 58 seconds. Outside, the crowd lifted both hands from the ground, at once. For a moment, I thought they were standing. They weren't. They turned their palms upward. Thousands of open hands beneath the red moon. The animals raised their heads. The birds spread their wings without taking flight. Everything held still, waiting. Then the people inside our bus started reaching for the floor. The teenager lowered one foot. His mother grabbed him. A woman slid from her seat. Eli caught her. The driver slapped the dashboard. Noise! We exploded. Yelling, clapping, kicking seats, bad singing. Anything without pattern. The hands outside trembled. Some lowered, some didn't. The man by our front tire grimaced. For the first time, he looked trapped inside his own face. Then a voice from the back shouted, "The other bus!" I turned. The second shuttle had begun moving. Not forward. Backward, slowly. Its engine was still dead. The road sloped slightly toward the western parking area. Someone inside had released the brake. The bus rolled under gravity. Only inches at first. Then a foot. 2. People lying behind it scrambled away, not because they had awakened, because no living creature willingly stays beneath a moving vehicle. The crowd broke formation. The shuttle rolled faster, 5 miles an hour at most. But inside, passengers were waking. Heads jerked upright. People screamed. Someone grabbed the steering wheel. The bus continued downhill. The synchronization around it fell apart like a reflection hit by rain. I looked at our driver. "Can this bus roll?" She followed my eyes, then understood. "We're on the same grade. Release the brake. There are people in front of us. Not if we go backward." Eli looked through the rear window. 6 people behind the wheels. "Then wake them up." "How?" I looked at the emergency window hammer mounted beside the driver, then at the metal wall. "Make it unbearable." The driver smiled for the first time. Not because anything was funny, because she finally had something to do. She grabbed the hammer. Eli took a fire extinguisher. Passengers started pounding seat frames, windows, rails. I joined them. The bus became a box full of ugly human noise. Outside, people covered their ears. One woman sat up, then another. A man behind the bus suddenly looked around, saw where he was lying, and crawled away in panic. "Keep going!" We hammered harder. More people woke. The formation behind us opened. The driver climbed into her seat. "Everybody brace!" Hannah grabbed my arm. The driver released the parking brake. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the bus rolled backward, slowly. The tires turned. The crowd behind us scattered. The humming broke. Something inside my chest snapped loose. Hannah gasped. All around us, passengers began shouting in confusion. The bus gathered a little speed. 3 miles an hour. 4, 5. My phone vibrated. I looked down. Totality remaining 0:12. Hannah suddenly grabbed the seat in front of her. Her face went white. "What?" She stared past me toward the meadow. "I can't feel them." That's good. No, her voice broke. Claire, I can't feel anyone. The timer reached 5 seconds. 4, 3. Hannah pulled away from me. 2. She lunged toward the open emergency doors, and I realized with absolute horror that she wasn't being controlled. She had changed her mind. I caught her around the waist before she reached the doors. "Hannah!" She screamed and drove her elbow backward. It caught me in the ribs. Pain flashed through my side. I held on. The bus was still rolling backward. People were shouting. Someone near the front yelled that the road curved ahead. The driver fought the steering wheel without power assistance, guiding us downhill by muscle alone. None of it mattered to Hannah. She was trying to get back to the meadow. "Let me go." "No, it's ending. That's the point. You don't understand." "I understand enough." She twisted in my arms. I expected that peaceful expression again. Instead, she looked devastated. Not possessed, not blank, devastated. "Please." That almost broke me. Outside, the red shadow began sliding off the moon. A thin silver edge appeared along one side. The basin changed with it, not all at once. The effect passed across the meadow like a current losing voltage. Birds exploded into the air. Some collided in their sudden panic. Deer bolted. One of the coyotes spun and sprinted toward the tree line. People who had been lying peacefully on the ground began sitting up, then shouting, then screaming. The shared calm shattered into hundreds of separate reactions. A man ran without knowing where he was going. Someone called for a child. A woman stood in the roadway and screamed a name over and over. The first elk surged through the crowd and sent people diving aside. The world had become individual again. Hannah saw it happening. She stopped fighting me. "No." Her voice was barely audible. The moon brightened. More silver returned. Hannah's knees buckled. I lowered her to the floor. She pressed both hands over her face. "No, no, no!" I crouched beside her. "What?" She shook her head. The bus rolled another 20 feet. Then the driver yelled, "Brake!" She pulled the emergency lever. The shuttle shuddered to a stop. Everyone lurched forward. I caught myself against a seat. Hannah didn't move. Outside, chaos spread. The organized lines were gone. People stumbled across the meadow, calling for family members, trying to remember where their blankets were, asking strangers what had happened. The animals had returned to being animals, which was somehow the most comforting thing I had ever seen. A rabbit sprinted away from the coyotes. One coyote gave chase. An elk kicked at another that got too close. Normal fear, normal hunger, normal separation. Hannah lowered her hands. Her face looked empty, not supernaturally empty, human empty, like someone had taken something from her. "It's gone," she said. I sat beside her. "I know. You don't." "Hannah, you don't know." Her voice cracked. She turned away from me. For several seconds, all I could hear was crying throughout the bus. People were waking into memories they couldn't explain. Some remembered everything. Others remembered pieces. One man kept asking why his shoes were muddy. The teenager in the varsity jacket vomited into a trash bag. Eli sat on the floor near the front, staring at his own hands. The driver kept trying the ignition. Nothing. Then, without warning, the dashboard lights came on. The radio system chirped. The interior lights flickered back. The bus engine turned over on the first try. Everyone froze. The driver stared at the gauges. "You've got to be kidding me." Power returned across the basin in sections. Light tower. Parking sign. Visitor center glow in the distance. Another shuttle started. Then another. Phones began vibrating everywhere as lost service returned. Mine lit up with 4 emergency alerts, 3 missed messages from the park event system, and a weather notification that suddenly seemed insulting in its normality. The little yellow radio was still lying on the floor where I had dropped it. No batteries, no reason to touch it. I picked it up anyway. Hannah watched me. Why? I don't know. I opened the battery compartment. Empty. Then the speaker crackled. My whole body went cold. Hannah looked at me. The bus went quiet. Static came through the tiny speaker. A few people backed away. The driver whispered, "That thing doesn't have batteries." I know. The static lasted 3 seconds. Then the astronomy host returned. Clear, cheerful, mid-sentence. And that concludes totality here at Morro Basin. We hope everyone enjoyed this extraordinary celestial event. Nobody breathed. The host continued. Please allow extra time when returning to campgrounds and parking areas. Shuttle service will continue for the next 90 minutes. Then the radio went silent. No 3 tones, no hidden voice, no final message, nothing. I turned it over in my hands. There was no explanation inside the plastic. Of course there wasn't. Eli took it from me. I'm keeping that. Please do. He set it on the dashboard as if it were a dead insect nobody wanted to throw away. The driver closed the emergency doors. Everybody staying on? Nobody objected. The shuttle started forward. We moved slowly through the crowd. People gave the bus room now. Some were injured from falls or panic, but I saw nothing catastrophic. Event workers were already moving through the meadow. Someone had found a first aid kit. Rangers and EMTs were arriving from the visitor center. No black vehicles, no mysterious federal team, no people in suits collecting radios. Just confused workers trying to handle something nobody understood. As we passed the eastern meadow, I saw the empty circle. It was gone, not covered, gone in the simplest possible sense. People walked through it. Grass stood normally. No hole, no mark, nothing had emerged, nothing had been buried there. That frightened me more than evidence would have. Hannah stared out the opposite window. I touched her hand. She pulled it away. I let her. We rode in silence until the bus reached the visitor center. People climbed off into floodlights and noise, questions everywhere. Did you black out? Where's Marcus? Why were the animals there? My phone stopped working. I swear I could feel everyone. That last sentence made Hannah stop. A woman a few feet away was talking to her husband. He looked shaken. What do you mean, feel everyone? She pressed a hand to her chest. I don't know. Hannah walked toward her. Hannah. She ignored me. The woman noticed her. For a second, they just looked at each other. Then Hannah said, You remember? The woman nodded. Tears appeared immediately. Do you? Yes. They hugged. Strangers, not synchronized, not compelled. Just 2 frightened people who had lost the same impossible thing. I stood a few feet away and watched. And for the first time that night, I wondered whether surviving something and being rescued from it were always the same thing. By midnight, Morro Basin had become the least relaxing place in America. The visitor center lobby was packed. People sat on floors, windowsills, benches, anywhere they could fit. EMTs moved through the crowd checking pupils, blood pressure, oxygen levels. Rangers took names and tried to reunite families separated during the walk toward the eastern meadow. Nobody had an explanation. That part became obvious quickly. The official language was cautious. Possible mass disorientation, temporary communication failure, unusual wildlife behavior, potential environmental exposure. Every phrase sounded like someone had been handed a puzzle with half the pieces missing and told to write a press release anyway. Hannah and I sat against a wall near a vending machine. She hadn't spoken to me in almost 20 minutes. The woman she had hugged earlier was sitting with her husband across the lobby. Every few minutes she and Hannah made eye contact. Neither smiled. They didn't need to. I hated that, not because I was jealous. Because they shared something I didn't know how to reach. A paramedic crouched in front of us. You 2 feeling dizzy? No, I said. He looked at Hannah. She shook her head. Nausea? No. Headache? No. Memory gaps? I opened my mouth. Hannah answered first. No. The paramedic looked surprised. You remember the whole thing? Yes. He wrote something down. So do I said. He nodded. That seems mixed. Some people remember almost nothing after totality started. Others remember everything. Has anybody been seriously hurt? Mostly falls, a couple animal-related injuries, one broken wrist. One guy got clipped by a shuttle mirror. No mass casualties, no vanished crowd, no ritual sacrifice. Just hundreds of frightened people with memories that didn't agree. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made the whole thing feel harder to contain. The paramedic stood. If either of you starts feeling confused, has chest pain, trouble breathing, and anything like that, tell somebody. He moved on. I watched him kneel beside another family. Hannah finally spoke. You told him you remember. I do. Everything? I knew what she meant. Yes. She looked at me. Then say what it felt like. I hesitated. That was a mistake. She gave a humorless laugh. Exactly. I'm trying to find the words. No, you're trying to find the safe words. Hannah. What did it feel like? The lobby noise seemed to recede. I looked down at my hands. It felt like I didn't have to keep anything separated. Her expression changed slightly. I continued. You, me, Mom, fear, responsibility. It was all still there. But there wasn't a border around any of it. She swallowed. Yes. And I hated how good it felt. That's the different. What is? You hated it because you couldn't control it. I looked at her. That's not fair. There's that word again. I pulled you away because you wanted to walk into something nobody understood. I wanted to stay for 2 minutes. You didn't know what would happen. Neither did you. Exactly, she stared at me. You really don't hear yourself. I felt heat rise into my face. So what was I supposed to do? Stand there and watch you lie down in the road? I don't know. That's convenient. Her eyes sharpened. Do you think this is easy for me? I think you're acting like I stole something from you. You did. The sentence cut cleanly. People around us kept talking. A child cried near the entrance. Somewhere behind the front desk, a printer started spitting out forms. I barely heard any of it. I got you out. I asked you not to. You changed your mind. Then I changed it back. After you saw the circle. And then I changed it again. Because you were affected. So were you. Hannah, you were trying to jump off a moving bus. It was barely moving. That is not the point. No, the point is that you decided the version of me who agreed with you was the real one. I had no answer to that. She leaned her head against the wall. Her voice softened. Do you know what I felt when it ended? I shook my head. Grief. My chest tightened. Like Mom died again? No, she looked at me. Like everybody did. I stared at her. For a few minutes, I could feel that nobody was really gone. Not Mom, not you, not me. Not because dead people were somehow there. That's not what I mean. She pressed both hands together. It was like losing someone stopped being the worst thing that could happen because separation itself wasn't permanent. I wanted to tell her it wasn't real. The words reached my mouth and stopped, because I had felt it too. Not as strongly, not for as long, but enough that calling it fake would have been a lie. Hannah looked toward the woman across the lobby. She remembers that part. I know. And now it's gone. I know. No, you don't. I almost argued. Then I didn't. A ranger stepped onto a chair near the front desk and raised his voice. "Everyone, we're evacuating the park overnight. If you have a vehicle, you'll be released by campground section. If you came by shuttle, buses will take you to temporary lodging sites in town." People immediately started asking questions. "What about our tents?" "My medication is at the campsite." "Can we get our equipment?" "Is the road open?" The ranger lifted both hands. "Please, we'll address essential access individually." The normal human mess returned all at once. Arguments, needs, possessions, schedules, separate people wanting separate things. I watched Hannah take it in. Her face tightened like the sound physically hurt. Then every phone in the lobby buzzed, mine included. A park emergency notification filled the screen. "Morro Basin National Park will close until further notice." Below it was a second line. "Please do not return to eclipse viewing areas." Nothing supernatural, nothing cryptic, just an evacuation notice. Hannah stood. "Where are you going?" "To get some air." "I'll come with you." "No." The answer was immediate. She saw my reaction and sighed. "Claire, I'm going 12 feet outside the door. I know." "Do you?" That stopped me. She walked toward the entrance. I stayed where I was. Every muscle in my body wanted to follow. I didn't. Through the glass doors, I watched Hannah step outside alone. She stood under the normal white moonlight and looked toward the dark shape of the basin. Then she did something that frightened me more than anything else that night. She smiled. Not because the signal had returned, not because something was calling her, because she remembered what it had felt like. And I realized the hardest part of getting my sister out of Morro Basin was already over. The harder part would be living with the fact that she wished I hadn't. The park put us in a motel 23 miles away. Put is generous. They handed us a voucher, pointed toward a line of shuttle buses, and told us which towns still had rooms available. By 2 a.m, Hannah and I were sitting on opposite beds beneath a framed photograph of a waterfall that looked nothing like Morro Basin. Neither of us had showered. Neither of us had changed clothes. The television was on mute. Every local station was showing the same aerial footage of the visitor center parking lot. Emergency vehicles, crowds, shuttle buses. No footage of the meadow itself. That bothered me at first. Then I realized there probably wasn't some hidden reason. Most people had been too busy experiencing the strangest event of their lives to produce useful television. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Friends, co-workers, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Mom's older sister called 3 times. Apparently someone had posted a video of the elk before the park closed. I didn't watch it. Hannah did. She sat cross-legged against the headboard with her phone 6 inches from her face. "Anything?" She didn't answer. "Hannah?" She turned the screen toward me. The video had been filmed from farther north in the meadow. You could see the animals coming out of the trees. You could also hear the radio signal. 3 notes, low, lower, low. But the timing was wrong. The elk moved first, then the radio played. Exactly as I remembered. Hannah took the phone back. So? So the radio wasn't causing it? We already knew that. I know. She gave me a tired look. Then why does it matter? I didn't have an answer, maybe because I wanted facts. Facts were clean. The radio came after the ground. The moving buses disrupted the effect. Totality ended and the synchronization stopped. Those were things I could stack in order. They gave me something to hold. Hannah had no interest in holding them. She watched another video. This one showed the moment the people first began walking east. The person filming was laughing. "Look at all these idiots following the deer." Then the camera turned. The person filming had started walking too. The laughter stopped. Hannah paused the video. "Do you remember choosing to walk?" "Yes." She looked at me. I don't. You did. I know I did. I remember moving. I don't remember deciding. That's what scared me. She looked back at the screen. What scared me was how little it mattered. What does that mean? It means I didn't miss deciding. I sat on the edge of my bed. The motel air conditioner rattled. I had spent the last several hours hearing hundreds of people breathe together. Now that stupid machine sounded unbearably loud. Hannah, she put her phone down. I know what you're going to say. What? That I'm romanticizing it. I had been about to say something close to that. She saw it on my face. Exactly. I'm trying to understand. No, you're trying to classify. What's the difference? Understanding doesn't always end with you deciding what something was. That sounds nice until somebody gets hurt. Nobody died. We didn't know that would be true. She laughed without smiling. And there's your answer to everything. What is? We didn't know. We didn't. So that means you automatically get to choose? When the alternative might be death? You always make the alternative death. I stood. That's ridiculous. Is it? Yes. College? I stopped. She started counting on her fingers. My first apartment. Derek, the trip to Mexico. Quitting the restaurant. Moving to Portland. Those were completely different situations. Every one of them came with some version of, I'm worried something bad will happen. No, I was worried. I know. Because bad things can happen. I know. Her voice was calm now. That made it harder. Claire, I know you love me. I wished she had yelled. I know you think being afraid for me is the same thing as loving me. That's not what I think. Maybe not consciously. I looked toward the television. A news anchor stood outside the closed park entrance. The caption underneath her read, Unexplained incident during lunar eclipse unexplained. That was all anyone had. Hannah followed my eyes. They're going to explain it. You think? They'll try. Mass suggestion, environmental exposure, some frequency issue. Maybe. And 10 years from now, people will argue about it online. Probably. She lay back against the pillows. None of that changes what it felt like. I sat again. No. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Hannah said, Do you want to know the part I can't stop thinking about? I nodded. When everybody was together like that, I could feel you. My throat tightened. You were standing right next to me. That's not what I mean. She stared at the ceiling. I could feel how scared you were. I didn't respond. And underneath it, I could feel how tired you were. The room seemed smaller. Hannah turned her head toward me. You've been tired since Mom died. I looked away. Don't. Why? Because I don't want a supernatural group mind therapy session. It wasn't therapy. Whatever it was. You asked what I experienced. I know. So I'm telling you. I pressed my palms together. She continued. You think I wanted to stay because I wanted to disappear? That's what you said. No, you said that. I thought back. She was right. What I wanted, Hannah said, was one more minute where I didn't have to guess whether you loved me, or feared me, or resented me, or thought I was failing. I have never resented you. I know that now. The words landed softly. That somehow made them worse. Because of what happened? Yes. Hannah, whatever that thing was, you can't build your life around something that lasted 12 minutes. I'm not. Then what are you saying? She sat up. I'm saying I learned something during those 12 minutes. What? That you love me. I stared at her. And that you don't trust me. There it was, simple, human, no signal, no moon, no mystery, just the part I couldn't solve with an emergency plan. Hannah, I'm not leaving tonight. I didn't think you were. I mean leaving you. My stomach dropped anyway. She looked exhausted. I'm going home with you. We'll deal with our stuff. We'll answer everyone's questions. We'll pretend we can explain what happened. She picked up her phone. But after that, I need some space. How much? I don't know. I almost asked when she would know. I almost asked where she would go. I almost asked whether she had enough money. Instead, I nodded. It might have been the first time in years I let her make a decision without immediately trying to improve it. Hannah noticed. She didn't thank me. I'm glad she didn't. Outside our motel window, the moon was almost completely white again, ordinary, separate from us, and for the first time since the meadow, I understood that the thing I was most afraid of losing had never belonged to me in the first place. The story became national news before we made it home. By noon the next day, every version of it existed, a wildlife event. A crowd panic, a hoax, a neurological episode caused by low-frequency sound, a coordinated performance, a government experiment, aliens. Of course there were aliens. Someone uploaded a 30-second clip of people lying around the empty circle, and that was enough to keep the internet busy for weeks. What the clips never captured was the feeling. They showed bodies moving together. They showed elk beside coyotes. They showed people humming, but watching it on a phone looked ridiculous compared to being inside it, like seeing footage of an ocean and deciding you understood drowning. The park released a statement saying no single cause had been identified. They confirmed there had been a temporary communications failure, widespread reports of disorientation, and abnormal wildlife behavior during totality. They did not mention the 3-note signal. That omission produced another 1,000 theories. I didn't care. For the first few days, I cared only about Hannah. We drove home together. 4 hours, almost no conversation. She slept for most of it with her forehead against the passenger window. When we reached my apartment, she carried her bag inside, showered, ate half a sandwich, and slept for 14 hours. The next morning, she started packing. Not dramatically. No slammed doors, no crying. She folded clothes, charged her phone, put her toothbrush in its travel case. I stood in the kitchen pretending to clean a coffee maker that was already clean. When are you coming back? She looked at me. I immediately regretted the wording. I mean, I know what you mean. She zipped her bag. I'm going to Portland for a while. To your apartment? Yes. I nodded. Are you driving? Yes. Today? Yes. The old machinery inside me started up. How much sleep had she gotten? Was the car full of gas? Had she checked the tires? Was she emotionally okay to drive? Did she have enough money? Should she wait one more day? I had 5 questions in my mouth before I realized what was happening. Hannah watched me swallow all of them. Your car okay? I asked. 1 question, she smiled faintly. Yes. Good. That was it. It felt unnatural. Like learning to write with the wrong hand. She carried her bag toward the door. I followed. At the entrance, she stopped. I'm not punishing you. I know. You look like I'm punishing you. I'm working on my face. That got a real laugh. Small, but real. Then she became serious again. I mean it. I know. She looked down at the bag in her hand. I need to figure out what I think about what happened without you explaining it to me. That hurt. I let it. Okay. And without you explaining me to me. That hurt more. I nodded. Okay. She opened the door, then paused. I do know why you pulled me onto the bus. I looked at her. I know you thought you were saving me. I did. I know. A long silence. Neither of us said she was glad I had. Then Hannah hugged me. For one desperate second, I wanted to squeeze hard enough to keep her there. Instead, I let her decide when the hug ended. She stepped away. I'll text you when I get home. Thanks. And Claire? Yeah? Don't track my location. I almost laughed, because before Morro Basin, I absolutely would have. Okay. She studied my face to see if I meant it. I did. Then she left. Her car disappeared at the end of the street 12 minutes later. I know because I stood at the window. I did not check the map. That became the pattern of the next 3 months. Not checking. Not calling when I wanted to. Not sending a second message because the first one had gone unanswered for 6 hours. Not asking our aunt whether Hannah had mentioned me. It was embarrassing how difficult it was. I had spent years telling myself that constant attention was love. Without it, I sometimes felt useless. That was probably the most honest thing Morro Basin gave me. Not a cosmic revelation, not proof that humanity was secretly one organism. Just the humiliating realization that some of my love had become a job Hannah never hired me to do. The park stayed closed for 11 days. When it reopened, the eastern meadow remained off-limits while biologists examined vegetation and wildlife movement. Nothing dramatic came out of it. No crater, no toxic spill, no buried machine, no species-wide disease. The closure ended. The barriers eventually came down. People returned to hiking trails and campgrounds. Life did what life always does around things it cannot explain. It built a gift shop of theories and moved on. The little yellow radios were removed from the visitor program. That was the only permanent public change I ever heard about. I kept thinking about ours. Eli had taken it on the bus. I never asked what happened to it. I didn't want it. I didn't want evidence. I had enough. Then, almost 4 months after the eclipse, Hannah called me, not texted, called. I stared at her name until the second ring. Then I answered, "Hey." "Hey." Her voice sounded normal, which immediately made me emotional. I concentrated on not making that her problem. "How are you?" "I'm good." "Good." A pause. Then she laughed. "You're being weird." "I'm trying very hard not to ask 17 questions." "You can ask like 3. Generous." "I'm growing." "So am I." Another pause. This one felt easier. Then Hannah said, "I'm thinking about going back." Every muscle in my body tightened. "To Morro Basin?" "Yeah." "When?" "Next month." My brain produced an entire emergency presentation. I could practically see the bullet points. I said nothing. Hannah waited. "You still there?" "Yes." "You're really not going to tell me that's a bad idea?" "I think you already know I think it's a bad idea." She laughed softly. "Fair?" "Why do you want to go?" "I don't know." "That's one question." "I'm counting." She sighed. "I think I want to see it when nothing is happening." That made sense in a way I didn't like. "No eclipse?" "No eclipse." "No event?" "No." "Are you going alone?" Question 2. Hannah. "With a friend." I relaxed slightly. She heard it. "Don't." "Sorry." "You did the thing." "I know." We both laughed. Then she became quiet. "I'm not going because I think it's coming back." "Okay." "I'm not trying to find the signal." "Okay." "I just need to see the place as a place again." I understood that too, more than I wanted to. "Then go." Silence. "Really?" "Yeah." "You're not going to offer to come?" That question was harder. Part of me wanted to say yes before she finished asking it. Instead, I looked around my apartment, at the ordinary walls, at the coffee cup beside me, at a life where nobody else's decisions moved unless I moved them. No, I said. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you." And somehow, hearing that hurt less than I expected. Outside my window, evening traffic moved in 100 different directions. No rhythm, no pattern, no shared destination. For the first time since the blood moon, I found the disorder comforting. Hannah went back to Morro Basin without me. I knew the date. I knew roughly what time she planned to arrive. I knew the name of the friend going with her. That was all. For most people, that would probably sound normal. For me, it felt like standing beside an open airplane door and deciding not to reach for the parachute. At 9:14 that morning, I checked my phone. No message. At 9:22, I checked again. Still nothing. At 9:31, I opened our text thread and typed, "Everything okay?" Then deleted it. At 9:44, I typed, "Have fun." Deleted that too. At 10:03, my phone buzzed. One photo, no caption, the meadow. Green grass, blue sky. A few scattered visitors walking near the designated trails. No elk, no coyote. No crowd, no red moon. Just a place. I zoomed in before I could stop myself, then laughed. Some habits apparently required more than 4 months to kill. I texted back one word. "Beautiful." Hannah responded with a heart. That was all we said that day. She called me the following evening. "How was it?" I asked. "Normal." "Disappointingly normal?" "Kind of." I smiled. "Did you go to the Eastern Meadow?" "Yeah." My stomach tightened. I said nothing. She noticed. "You can ask." "What did it feel like?" "Like grass." "That's it, pretty much." "No humming?" "No." "No vibration?" "No." "No animals acting strange?" "There was a squirrel that stole half of Nathan's granola bar." "That sounds criminal." "We're considering charges." I laughed. She did too. Then her voice softened. I stood where the circle was. I stopped smiling. "Okay." "There's nothing there." "I remember." "No, I mean really nothing. You can't even tell where it happened." "That's probably good." "Maybe." I waited. She had gotten better at silence. Or maybe I had gotten better at not filling it. Finally she said, "I thought being there would help me decide what it was." "Did it?" "No." That surprised me. "What do you think now?" "I think I'm done trying to name it." There was a time when that answer would have irritated me. Now I understood it. We had named enough things without understanding them. Grief, protection, responsibility, danger, love. Sometimes the label became an excuse to stop looking at what was actually there. Hannah continued, "I still miss it." I closed my eyes. "Okay. I need you to know that. I do. And I still think you were wrong to force me onto that bus." There it was. 4 months had not softened it. I felt the familiar urge to defend myself. I could have listed every reason. The animals, the people lying in the road, the empty circle, the fact that none of us knew what would happen when totality ended. Every argument was still true. I let them remain true without saying them. "I know," I said. Hannah went quiet. Then she said, "You're not going to argue?" "No." "That's unsettling." "I'm evolving." "Slowly." "Very." We both laughed. Then I said, "I still think I had to do it." "I know." "And I'm not sorry that you're alive." "I know." "But I am sorry that I treated your fear as proof that I got to choose for you." Silence, long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then Hannah breathed out, "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness. I don't think either of us wanted it to be. Some things are too complicated for one person to apologize and another person to erase. "I decided something else," she said. My body tensed automatically. I noticed I hated it. I waited. "I'm staying in Portland." I stared at the wall. "For good?" "For now." The old questions rushed forward. Job? Money? Lease? Safety? Who was Nathan? Was Nathan the friend from the park? How well did she know him? I let the questions pass. "That sounds good," I said. "You don't know if it's good." "No," she laughed softly. "Okay, that was actually impressive." I'm sweating. I can hear it. "When are you moving the rest of your stuff?" "Next weekend." "I can help." "I know." Another pause. "I'd like that." Something in my chest loosened, not because I had gotten my sister back. I hadn't. That was the wrong way to think about her. She was never something I could get back. We talked for another 20 minutes, nothing important. Her apartment. My work. Nathan, who turned out to be a woman named Natalie, whose nickname I had misheard months earlier. Hannah enjoyed correcting me far too much. When we hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen for a while. Outside people moved past the windows. A delivery driver parked crookedly. Two neighbors argued about a trash bin. Someone laughed from an apartment across the courtyard. Separate lives, separate worries, separate rooms inside separate minds. Before Morro Basin, I had never thought of that as a gift. Afterward, I wasn't sure. Maybe what happened during the eclipse showed us something terrible. Maybe individuality is thinner than we think. Maybe all the boundaries we guard so fiercely can disappear under the right conditions. Or maybe the horrifying thing wasn't losing them. Maybe it was discovering how much relief there could be in letting them go. I still don't know. No one does. The official investigation eventually ended without a cause. No toxic exposure, no equipment failure capable of explaining the behavior, no geological event that matched what people reported feeling beneath their feet. The radio recordings existed, but experts disagreed about where the three tones came from. Some people who were there said the whole event had been exaggerated. Others built their lives around it. A few formed online groups. Hannah never joined them. Neither did I. Morro Basin remained open. People camped there. Children run through the visitor center. Elk still cross the meadow. Coyotes still hunt rabbits. The world separated itself again and continued. Years from now, another total lunar eclipse will pass over some other piece of Earth. Maybe nothing will happen. I hope nothing happens. But I no longer spend much time imagining what I would do if it did. That is probably the biggest difference between the woman who drove into Morro Basin and the woman telling this story now. Back then, I believed love meant preparing for every possible disaster. I believed if I watched closely enough, planned carefully enough, held tightly enough, I could keep the people I loved from being taken from me. The blood moon didn't teach me that I was wrong about danger. Danger is real. So is loss. It taught me something much harder. Sometimes holding on and keeping someone are not the same thing. The night of the eclipse, I dragged my sister away from thousands of people who had forgotten where one body ended and another began. Months later, when she chose a life farther from mine, I finally did the thing I had been too frightened to do in that meadow. I let her be separate, and this time, I didn't call it losing her.